Hello, welcome back to the Steve and Mark Discuss podcast, where Steve gets his telescope and looks in detail at various different things across the media. So, over to Steve.
Hi there, people, once again. This topic is interesting, especially its relative because of India having their probe landing safely on the moon. They're happy as a cat that's just got the cream. Russia, not so much. Two or 3 days ago, where their probe crashed. But this goes back. This story goes back a little bit, and just to show you how projects going into space can go sour for human error. Let's say use that phrase. So let's talk about the astronauts. Lisa Novak is an American astronaut. Perhaps few people know who she is, but she's the lady who drove across the US wearing a nappy to go and confront her ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend. And you would think that if you're an astronaut, that you'd have a little bit more self-control, to do that sort of thing. This was in 2007. There was even a film made about it called Lucy in the Sky. But going forward, in 2018, there was another female astronaut, Severina Agnon Chancellor, who was in the space station. And she was there for a while in the space station. And apparently she was worried that her boyfriend on Earth was having an affair with a friend of hers. So she wanted to come back to Earth. And of course, there isn't a bus service that takes you to the International Space Station. And this was in the time when the Soyuz rocket with the Russians went up to the space station and locked in, and they were doing joint projects, And this lady, Severina, she was poisoning plants. She was doing everything to make herself unpopular. She broke the toilets. She apparently ruined an awful lot of the experiments that the Americans were trying to carry out. She became very unpopular amongst the crews on both sides. The Russians didn't want to come to their side of where they docked with the International Space Station because she was so obnoxious. And apparently she was accused of drilling a hole in the space station. She was so deranged, so disturbed, you could say that she had a mental breakdown. And this was brought to light in the mainstream media last year, 22. In the Daily Mail, there's a small article about the Russians wanting to sue this NASA because this lady was destroying everything that they were trying to do whilst they were up there. You know? It doesn't cost. It's not $5 to go to the space station. You spend a lot of money, a lot of research. So anyway, of course, NASA said that she didn't drill the hole. Drilling the hole, by the way, it's like it isn't like the space station is under pressure on the outside in. It isn't like going. It isn't like that submarine that imploded because of the pressure um, on the outside when it goes underwater. But it's on the contrary. It's on the inside to go out. You know, because they need to pump air into the space station. And so, you know, it was reducing pressure on the inside, and they had to repair the hole. And then, you know, she'd do something else. And so anyway, of course, NASA said that she didn't make the hole. And there were 3 articles about this incident where the Washington Post described her as having a personal crisis. Ars Technica, which is a technical publication, they carried the story, and they asked NASA if the lady had had a nervous breakdown, and they were on about. NASA said they don't make comments on medical information of their astronauts. So instead of saying no, she didn't have a nervous breakdown, they just said we're not going to tell you. You know. And space.com, which is a site on the internet, called it a medical condition. Now, this lady, Severina, she's from Cuba. She's or her parents are from Cuba, you know, which makes you think, should Latina women go to space? A misogynist might say,
Yeah, God,
should they go into space because they can't be controlled?
Oh, dear.
You know, there were 77 female astronauts by NASA, and 2 of them, this Lisa Novak and this Severina, they acted a little bit strange, and I don't know if that's a percentage, a high percentage for in compared to male. I know that Buzz Aldrin, he's got a little bit eccentric.
Well,
you know, but
yeah, yeah.
You know, he's if he's not died already, he's a very old man.
No, yeah, I've seen British video. He's still going, but I think he's had a few medical proper issues as well. But nice guy. I mean, I've seen interviews with him and all that. He's still still there. It is a I mean, yeah, normally they draw from the military and things like this, where they're used to being away and everything else.
Yeah.
Okay, these are people, they've had the psychological test. As was said to me many, many years ago, and I worked with somebody who actually told them that committed suicide. I was the last person on site to speak to this guy, and he went and committed suicide. Yeah. Okay, I had a few jokes about that. Can't blame him for that and things, but yeah. I mean, yeah, he wasn't the happiest of guys, but yeah, it was an unfortunate thing. And as my boss to me at the time said, and he had experience working with police officers and people, in Ireland actually, to be quite honest. So he understood psychotic issues, and he said, yeah, if somebody once said to him, an RUC guy, I think, said, there's a fine line between sanity and insanity. And we all can brush close to it sometimes. I mean, you and me, hopefully we've got outlets that we pull away from it. We have to deal with things that people back in Blighty don't have to deal with sometimes. So yeah, we've got slightly different characteristics about us. Yeah. So anyone can flip. And the idea around, and normally I think you're trained around you to watch your colleagues to see if it's going to happen. And it's the same with people serving on submarines, in the Air Force. You know, you have perfect trust in everyone around you. Now, I don't know anyone goes neurotic or suffers a breakdown, what the procedure is in space. I imagine, possibly tethering them to a bed somewhere. It's probably not.
Well, I mean, I was thinking about that, and how do you pin somebody down in space when there's no weight?
Well, I mean, well, yeah, there are ways of doing it, but yeah, how do you lock them down? That's probably wasn't thought about when they instigated or created this thing. I believe there's a procedure that's actually in place should Russia and America actually go to all-out war, of how the Russians and the Americans have to behave. And I do believe it's, well, you've just got to keep being friendly because, we can't have you running around. This is not a science fiction film. Yeah, okay, sci-fi. Right. You can't start blasting each other. It's unfortunate. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to start drawing on the psychology of men versus women in certain situations. There have been cases of men in the military who found out their wives have been having an affair, OMO boxes and everything in the windows and things like this, who have flipped out as well. So on these particular cases, I think men are as capable as women are of becoming very, very neurotic or aggressive. I don't know. I was watching the launch of SpaceX the other day. There were 3 women, I think, actually being launched. Very calm, enjoying the experience. I mean, every experience is a learned experience, and maybe NASA have learned from it. The recruitment might be a bit tougher. Yeah, I mean,
probably why they haven't sent any more.
No,
always, I was reading that there's always somebody on the space station.
Yeah, there has to be. Yeah, maintain it. Yeah.
Even up to now, there's somebody on the space station.
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, I'd have to look how many women go up there to men. I mean, yeah, it's a very difficult thing. Now, this idea of populating Mars, part of the problem is the time it takes to get there. You're going to have very, very unique, special people to sit on an aircraft or to sit in any vehicle, space vehicle. They're called space
8 years.
8 years, yeah. And if you're going to populate a place, now I know there's some modern thinking that says otherwise. You need 2 genders in order to carry on this. Unless there's something else that they're developing that we're not being told. And I think we covered that a few weeks ago.
Ask General Milley about that.
Yeah.
General Milley will probably send 4 or 5, and nobody can reproduce.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's Elon Musk. Yes, we need to become an interplanetary species to survive, and he's probably not wrong. We've only got 7 billion years left or something before the sun does what it's going to do. You're going to need unique people to go there, and who can deal with the inherent risks of it all. You just can't put. I mean, I was watching the people in SpaceX launch the other day, and these are brave people. They have to be, as we said. I mean, okay, there was an unmanned probe. The Russians failed the other day. India succeeded. I did actually read that the Indian engineers didn't see it as a moment of glory because they felt sorry for the Russian engineers who had failed. No other engineer, and I know this from my own experiences, likes to see other engineers fail. Everyone appreciates the efforts that go into something. And to launch a vehicle to space is a long process. To launch one, try and land it on a planet is a difficult, complicated process. The Americans have lost things. You watch any program about the space race. The Americans managed to lose people on the launch pad because of fires and things that were probably preventable. The space shuttle some years ago, a preventable incident.
Yeah.
But these things get overlooked at the time. It's normally something so simple. And it's like anything else. Yeah, the culmination of a lot of events. Yeah, I mean, probably we don't know how many people the Russians have actually managed to lose with their space exploration. Again, even
I mentioned that the other week. you know,
Yeah.
a few podcasts
Yeah.
ago about
Yeah.
the Russian cosmonaut who was burnt to a crisp,
Yeah.
and they had him in an open casket. Oh,
Yeah.
there's a lot of Russians that have been.
Well, absolutely.
I
Yeah.
imagine there's a lot of stress. For sure, there's a lot of stress.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
the lady freaking out is, you know, is something that I'm surprised that more people don't know about it,
yeah, but
or
don't,
unless I'm in a really dark place and I can't
well,
see.
also, I know this as working in a company and being a manager that you have to be very, very careful about people's medical records. Yeah, you can't make it public, otherwise NASA could theoretically be sued by her or her family. Yeah, um, it. I imagine. So, I mean, yes, yeah, the consequences of actions could have been quite serious if they're true. We don't know.
Well, I mean, I thought you was going to say that working in an office, people argue
Well, yeah.
here on Earth. So imagine in a small enclosed space,
Believe me, it
flying around
happened.
the planet.
Yeah, I've read where it's happened. So, I mean, yeah, we know against with our own little small community online, things happen
Yeah,
sometimes. But we all
yeah.
talk and we move on to another subject and a nicer pie to each other.
So anyway, the lady came back to Earth.